So, up until very recently, I got stuck in the New Age movement. I resonated with a lot of those ideas, and I think the reason why people resonate with a lot of those ideas is because there's always a lot of truth that's found in many different religions, including the New Age movement and the scientism movement. But there's also a lot of deceptions as well. I think of it like a pill, where the pill is sugary on the outside, so maybe it tastes good on the way down, but on the inside, the core of it is actually poison. And I also think of life as a chess game as well, and this is something I realized through Mark Passio's work, where you can't underplay the importance of action. There's just no other way around it. You could, Benny did mention The Secret, and there definitely is a lot of benefit to changing how you think, and also changing how you feel. But what's left out of the New Age movement is the action. The action is necessary to see the kind of change you want to see in the world, because you can meditate all you want, and maybe you could balance your brain and achieve bliss, but if you ignore the outside world completely, it's going to be real hard to concentrate and meditate for 5 hours a day if you're in a concentration camp, because you didn't pay attention to anyone else's needs, and now that's kind of problematic. And in line with that, I realized that if we want to see the kind of freedom we want in the world, it's going to take radical personal responsibility. And the kind of personal responsibility that we are most afraid to go into is what it's going to require. And it's not just action, but it's going to take the kind of personal responsibility that involves confronting our inner shadow. And what I mean by that is confronting your deepest fears. So all those fears you've been trying to run away from your whole life, the intention of life, of higher intelligence, is to get you to confront that. And I don't know about you guys, but confronting that and being on the journey to confronting that still is the most terrifying work that could ever be done. I'm sure there's a lot of you in the audience that are resonating with that as well. So the purpose of the mainstream media, and this even includes a lot of the alternative media as well, is they're trying to keep you from looking deep within. What they're trying to do is they're trying to keep you complaining, pointing the finger to someone else, not taking personal responsibility, basically trying to get you to do the opposite of everything that would bring a lot of prosperity and freedom to your life. So there's the emphasis on no personal responsibility, but there's also the emphasis on victim mentality as well. And a victim mentality is a huge problem because of the law of mentalism. It's a natural law. Everything that gets created and becomes manifested in the physical world first starts as a thought in your mind. So if you're not thinking about what you're wanting to create in the world and you don't have an intention, then it is not physically possible to actually bring what you want into the world. So this is something that the mainstream media downplays as well. But there's also a massive pandemic that the mainstream media is spreading called virtue signaling. Are any of you familiar with the definition of virtue signaling? How would you guys define virtue signaling? Anyone? Cowards? Well, not just virtue signalers, but how would you actually define the act of virtue signaling?
Look at me, I'm supposed to be doing the right thing.
Yeah, so posers.
You're part of the tribe.
Okay, and just basically trying to fit in.
Performative judgment.
Performative judgment. Yeah, okay.
An attempt to improve your reputation through action.
Yeah.
Simple, meaningless action.
Yeah. So the way I would describe virtue signaling is giving off the appearance of pursuing some noble cause to gain some sort of support or some sort of validation from other people. But the pursuit of that noble cause is disingenuous. It's actually just to increase your own power and serve your egoic needs. So that's what virtue signaling is. It's a way to, it's sort of a way to disguise your pursuit of your selfish desires while giving the impression externally that you're actually pursuing some noble cause. So for some of you, that might not be clear, so I'm going to get into examples of what virtue signaling is. The biggest example that is the most obvious is the COVID-19 pandemic. So how it works is the mainstream media says, we got to lock everything down, everyone's got to wear masks because we're trying to save grandpa and grandma. But so that's the noble cause that they're claiming to want to pursue to protect people. But what they're really doing is just consolidating their power. So power is becoming more centralized. As these businesses start closing, then businesses like Amazon and Walmart have a lot less competition they have to deal with. So they're directly benefiting from all these draconian measures. So that's virtue signaling. They're saying that they're doing it for the good of people, but in reality, it's against everyone's best interest and they're gaining much more power at the same time. Another example is the Antifa Summer of Love. Don't you guys just love that name? I mean, it's just the perfect way to describe what happened over the summer of 2020. There's nothing that screams social justice more than a bunch of white thugs screaming Black Lives Matter as they burn down black-owned businesses. So that's a perfect example of virtue signaling right there. You're claiming that you're in favor of lifting the boot off of minorities and black people, but what you're really doing is getting paid $15 an hour by George Soros and burning down businesses, which the destruction of those businesses also contributes to the more centralized power of corporations as well, and increased power of government. But virtue signaling isn't just about taking action in pursuit of your own selfish desires. It's also inaction. You could virtue signal and not be taking action at all as well. A perfect example of that are these Twitter social justice warriors. So we've all seen them. They're everywhere. Where they'll post about being in favor of some cause that seemingly everyone could get behind around. Everyone could get behind. But when you look at how that person's actually living their lives, they're living in direct opposition to that, in complete apathy, or they're just not taking any action to actually better the cause or move forward the cause that they claim that they're representing and speaking out against. You see this a lot with fake charities where they claim to, a lot of cancer charities, unfortunately, where they claim to want to find a cure for some disease or some cancer, but the reality is they have no interest in finding a cure at all because that would mean losing their jobs, and some of these are very cushy jobs making six figures. So there's a conflict of interest right there, but they'll keep telling you, we're searching for the cure, can't find the cure. Yeah, it's rather disgusting. And the next I have on the list here are just the authoritarian Democrats that are supporting the lockdowns. This is related to the same thing that the mainstream media is doing by promoting all this nonsense. But the reason why these leftist Democrats are doing this is because they perceive the lockdowns and mandates as keeping them safe, but they'll tell you it's for other people. So that's where the virtue signaling comes in. They'll say it's for grandma and grandpa and for your safety, but in reality, they haven't confronted their own fear and worked through that. So it's being advertised as an act of selflessness, but in reality, it's an act of complete selfishness. Another thing is Republicans. So I'm not leaving anyone out of this. I'm going to be offending everyone. Another thing is Republicans blindly praising the military for what they do as well. And the military, when you join the military, the problem with that is that you're stuck in an order-follower dynamic. You're not exercising your conscience. You're not asking yourself, is this the right action to take? And then based off your evaluation, taking the action or not taking the action. You're just blindly following orders. A perfect example is the invasion into Iraq, after 9/11, where it was claimed that it was to bring democracy and freedom to the Iraqis, but in reality, it was all about the acquisition of more resources. So that's virtue signaling as well. So virtue signaling is everywhere. It's a pandemic. It's one of the actual real pandemics that's going on, not the nonsense that we're being told. Let's talk about libertarians as well and how they virtue signal. So libertarians do this as well when they say they want freedom for the world, but in reality, they act in such a way where it's clear that they're only interested in their own freedom. So it's okay if that guy over there, is oppressed. He's in that part of the city or that part of the world. That's not affecting me, so that's not a problem. But I'm for my freedom. So these people aren't really a part of the freedom movement. They're part of the My Freedom movement. And this also manifests in such a way where if you're really about the freedom for the world, you would actually go out of your way to educate people. You would do some of the things that Benny was talking about. Get on your social media and talk to people about things that are going on in the world. Talk about the occult, talk about natural law, whatever. And you don't have to know everything before you do it. Even if you're just a couple steps ahead of someone else, just share what you know and get them to your level, and then you can worry about continuing to educate yourself. So don't wait until you know it all. You'll never know it all. People use that as an excuse too because they're fearful. But it's really just an excuse. And if enough people don't speak out, then it's ultimately the destruction of everything. So it is very important to speak out. So where does this virtue signaling comes from? It comes from where a lot of the dysfunction in the world comes from. And it comes from fear. It's fear on every level. Fear on what could happen to you in the external world. You're afraid of what people think, people in your family, afraid of what the government would do, afraid of what your employer would do. But it's not just physical consequences, it's also internal fear as well. It's a fear of confronting the very deep beliefs and assumptions you have about yourself. It's about the fear of not being good enough, the fear of not feeling smart enough, not feeling capable in some way. Just as much as any other fear, those are examples of fear that must be confronted as well and overcome. Because without that, you'll never be able to take the right action in the world. And if you don't take the right action in the world, well, we all know what the default option is. So that's exactly what shadow work is. It's looking deep within yourself, confronting how you really feel on a deep level about yourself, and asking, what kind of person am I? What is it here that I need to address that's affecting all my relationships and all the results I'm getting in the physical world? It's about knowing how your mind works. Well, not just your mind, but how your spirit, body, and mind all work so that you're able to actually make changes in a positive way. That's shadow work. And shadow work is also taking that knowledge and then applying it in the physical world, which is what wisdom actually is. It's just applied knowledge. And it doesn't get that much more simple. I mean, the New Age, one of the pet peeves I have about the New Age movement is the obfuscation of definitions. They try to make everything seem very woo-woo and mystical, and it has a way of turning people away. And I personally grew up a Christian, and I strayed away from that over time and got more into the New Age movement. And so many of these terms were just so ill-defined and just not fleshed out for me that I almost just completely rejected spirituality altogether. So, and if I hadn't found the works of a couple of other teachers that actually drastically steered the direction of my life moving forward, then I might not actually be here. I might be stuck in the, some sort of scientism paradigm. So the big picture solution to our problems is the shadow work. It's not the political process. It's not pointing fingers and blaming other people. It's doing the hardest work that there is on earth. It's looking within, confronting your own inner demons. Because if you don't confront your own inner demons, then that is ultimately what ends up creating demons on the outside world, in the external world. See, so many of these people that seem to be totally insane actually comes from the inability or unwillingness for themselves to look within and confront their fear. And because they're not doing that, that creates a condition of self-loathing, of self-hatred. And because that condition is so painful, what they do is they project it out onto the world. Ultimately, these people that hate the world and just want to burn everything down, they hate other people because they hate themselves. And it's impossible for it to be any other way. You will see this in every single case 100% of the time. And this self-hatred comes from fear from looking within. It's the inability or refusal to look within. So that is our work, to do that work upon ourselves and to guide others to do the same for themselves as well. And many hands make light work. If there's only a couple of us doing the work, it's very difficult to turn the tide. But as soon as many of us make it our mission, our life mission, to do this in whatever way we can, and as long as we focus on what we do best, we focus on our strengths, then I do think this is something that could definitely be turned around. It has to be turned around.
It is.
Yeah, it is turning around right now. It is. That is something I'm seeing. So we can see positive change. I believe actually lots of positive change can be seen in our lifetimes. And the proof of that is that the totalitarianism, the measures are accelerating. They're moving very fast. I mean, forget the totalitarian tiptoe that David Icke talks about. They're going full speed, just a sprint towards the finish line. And in a situation like this, it actually presents the opportunity for the greatest mass awakening that the world has ever seen. That is the opportunity that we have right in front of us, and we are at that pivotal point in history. And if we actually muster up the courage and do the deep shadow work, confront the fear within ourselves, then I believe we could really make a positive impact, and future generations will thank us. We'll go down in history as we will be the new greatest generation. They called the greatest generation the generation that fought World War I. I do think if we do our jobs, that will actually be referred to as the greatest generation. So, and that's something I'm working towards every single day, personally, in my own life.
And we get a chapter in the Bible.
Yeah. Every single day, I'm asking myself, what am I doing to advance the cause of freedom? What can I do to help myself and those around me? And there's not a single day that goes by where I don't think about it. And I encourage you all to adopt a similar sort of practice because it is extremely powerful. Once again, it goes back to the law of mentalism. What you think about will tend to manifest. What you think about and focus on gives you a chance to actually create the positive change. So it's not just focusing on the problem, it's about focusing on the little things you could do that are personally empowering. So focus on the solutions mentally, and you'll start implementing the solutions through your actions over time. And that's what I strive to do every day. And this is the most rewarding work I feel any of us could be doing. I mean, and it really is the only game in town. There's nothing else to do. It's the liberation of the entire planet. It's to end slavery, one mind at a time. And we were the ones that were called to do it too. And it's a calling we need to respect, because we are, through natural law, we are being judged. And at the end of my life, I want to be able to say, I did everything I could. Let the chips fall where they may. But so I don't know about all of you, but I'm not going to die with bullets in my gun. I'm going to do everything I can. So that's all I have for you guys. Thank you. We have any questions or any points you guys want to bring up?
What was your name of your podcast again?
So my podcast is called Liberty Solutions Now. We, in the podcast, we talk about the occult, ancient psychology, hidden laws of nature, natural law. Basically all the stuff that the controllers of the world know very deeply and don't want any of us to know. The most important stuff. So right now, I just finished episode 2, working on episode 3. And I tell you what, it's some of the most rewarding work I've done so far. I really appreciate those that actually reach out to me and gave me feedback. It really means a lot, because even just with the work I've done so far, it's not exactly easy. It's not exactly a walk in the park, but the more positive feedback I get and the more people that are asking me questions, wanting to get me clarification, it really shows that I'm on the right track. And I just think that's really cool. I think that's really cool. I've been searching for what I should be doing, for the vast majority of my life, and I finally feel like I found it. I finally have a direction. So check it out, libertysolutionsnow.com. I have the website, but I'm also on social media. And I'm also on 10 different alternative media platforms. So I'm on Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, Float, Float.app. For me, it's worth taking the extra time to get all my content onto all those other places, because it's worth it. I feel like this content is worth it. And I'm not even speaking from a position of ego. What the stuff I'm presenting isn't anything new under the sun. It's stuff that many different teachers have talked about in the past.
Question.
Yeah.
You said about confronting your personal demons. Now, is that a combative confrontation, or is that one where you're attempting to understand and transform your own beings through love of yourself and love of the other? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Ultimately, that's doing that is what creates basically long-term transformation. the solution ultimately is self-love. The solution is love, but and the New Age movement does say that, but it's such a vague state. It means a lot of different things. So an example of self-love could be eating healthy food, eating healthy, nutritious food. And by engaging in that act of self-love, that'll affect the kind of thoughts you have, the quality of your emotions, and your actions. But yeah, so that's an example of self-love. Another example could just be, having a good meditation practice, or even self-hypnosis. Because, if you become, more present to the moment and aware of your triggers and what's going on under the hood, so to speak, then you're able to control your emotions in such a way where it doesn't negatively affect other people. It doesn't negatively affect your own health, because, excessive thinking and, rumination and feeling negative emotions will deteriorate your health over time. So being present, it's an act of self-love that not only benefits yourself, but also benefits everyone else around you, because your actions will be radically transformed as well. So that is the long-term solution, self-love. But there are times, especially in the short term, where you might have to get combative with yourself, because transformation isn't always easy. You might have very strong urges to not do the work and, play video games and smoke weed, for example. But, if you give yourself a kick in the ass, if you're confrontational with yourself and get yourself to do the right actions anyway, then that's also beneficial as well. But ideally, you're able to evolve from that paradigm and get to a point where you don't have to force yourself anymore. It just becomes a habit to do the right thing. And that's a shift I've noticed in myself. And it definitely is possible to get to that point. It's one of the reasons why so many people struggle with addiction. They think, man, it just takes so much self-discipline to give up this one certain food. But what they don't realize is that if they actually started to do it, that over time, the cravings would disappear and their self-discipline muscle would get stronger, and it just become, a lot easier to actually live in alignment with the way that's beneficial. And I think that's something a lot of people need to understand. We need to be the ones to help people overcome addiction, just guide them step by step and make that personal transformation, because it really happens one person at a time. Yeah, no one left behind, no child left behind. But this is the real thing. Yeah. All right, anything else? How are we doing on time?
28 minutes.
That pretty much covers everything I wanted to talk about. I mean, if any of you guys want to ask me questions, aren't comfortable maybe asking publicly, then feel free to pull me aside, ask me privately. We could talk about things, but other than that, let's continue to enjoy the night.
Hey, nice job, man. I know a lot of us are proud of you for stepping up and doing something, man. So nice job taking your care and doing something to make the world better. We appreciate you.